Welcome to The Explainer. So get this. Have you ever heard of a river that just vanishes into a hole? Or a storm that literally never stops? Today, we're diving headfirst into some of the world's greatest mysteries, puzzles that have scientists completely stumped and challenge everything we think we know about our world.
You know, it's just human nature, right? We need to figure things out. But what happens when we can't? Despite all our technology and all our brain power, there are still these incredible things that just defy any logical explanation. They are stubbornly, fascinatingly unsolved. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today.
All right, so here's the plan. We're going to start right here on our own planet with some truly bizarre stuff. Then we'll jump back in time to look at puzzles our ancestors left behind. And finally, we'll blast off into the cosmos to see what's stumping astronomers out there. Let's do it.
So I just want to be super clear about this. What we're talking about today, this isn't campfire stories or conspiracy theories. Nope, every single one of these is a genuine, real-world puzzle that has top scientists scratching their heads, actively hunting for answers that are for now just out of reach.
Okay, let's start with stuff happening right here on Earth. I mean, you'd think we'd have our own planet pretty much figured out by now, right? Well, think again. Because up in Minnesota, there's this place where a whole river just flows into a hole in the ground and vanishes.
This place is called the Devil's Kettle. It's in Judge C.R. Magny State Park, and it's where the Brule River does this incredible vanishing act. See, the river splits right at this waterfall. One side behaves totally normally, just cascading over the rocks. But the other half, it dives straight into this deep, dark hole in the rock, and poof, it's gone.
So here's where it gets really weird. The logical explanation, right, is that the water has to pop out somewhere downstream, and geologists are pretty sure it does. But the mystery is how. The path it takes underground must be like some kind of insane natural filter, because it lets the water through, but, well, it traps everything else.
And trust me, people have tried everything to figure out where that water goes. They've chucked in brightly colored dyes, dropped in GPS trackers, tossed in ping pong balls, even whole logs. And the result is always the same. They just disappear, vanish without a trace. The water finds its way out, but literally nothing else ever has.
Okay, so from a mystery that's hidden deep inside the Earth, let's look up to the sky. Because over in Venezuela, above Lake Maracaibo, there's a storm that's, well, it's not just a storm. It's more like a permanent feature of the landscape.
They literally call it the everlasting storm. And for good reason. Imagine this, up to 160 nights every single year. For 10 hours at a time, the sky is just filled with lightning. It's so unbelievably reliable that for centuries, sailors actually used it as a natural lighthouse to guide them to shore. How cool is that? So why does it happen? What's going on here? Well, the top theory is that it's this perfect storm, literally, of geography. You've got warm air from the Caribbean Sea slamming into the cold air coming off the Andes Mountains. But that might not be the whole story. Other ideas point to what's under the lake, like maybe uranium or oil deposits releasing gases. The truth is, no single theory quite explains it all. The perfect recipe for this incredible light show is still a secret.
All right, next up, we're shifting gears from pure natural wonders to puzzles left behind by our ancestors. And these are the kind of enigmas that really blur the line. Were they made by nature, or was something else at play?
Check this out. Out in the middle of the Saudi Arabian desert sits this thing, the Al-Naslat Rock. We're talking about a huge boulder, weighing several tons, just balancing perfectly on these two little stands. But that's not even the craziest part. Look at that split. A perfectly straight, laser-like cut right down the middle.
Now, the official scientific explanation says it's just a fluke of nature, a natural weak spot in the rock that got sandblasted by wind for millennia. But just look at it. The cut is so clean, so precise, it's hard to believe it wasn't made by something or someone. It has a lot of people wondering if some ancient culture had a technology that we've completely lost.
Okay, from one single mysterious rock to an entire desert that's been turned into a giant canvas, let's talk about the Nazca lines in Peru. Here, an ancient culture left behind hundreds of enormous drawings called geoglyphs carved right into the desert floor.
And here's the real head-scratcher. It's all about perspective. These huge drawings, we're talking spiders, monkeys, even astronaut-like figures, were made by a pretty simple method, just clearing away the dark top rocks to show the lighter ground underneath. But the thing is, you can only actually see what they are from way up high in the air. So the big question is, why? Why would a civilization without airplanes create massive art that they themselves could never properly see?
All right, for our last mystery, we have to leave Earth behind completely. Because for all the weird and wonderful things on our own planet, the universe has puzzles on a whole different scale.
So let's take a little trip about 1,500 light-years away to a star called KIC 8462852. You could just call it Tabby Star, it's easier. Now usually, astronomers spot planets by watching for a star's light to dim just a tiny bit on a regular schedule. That's a planet passing in front. But when they pointed their telescopes at Tabby Star, the dips in light weren't tiny, and they definitely weren't regular.
Yeah, we're not talking about a gentle dip here. The light from this star was flickering wildly, and at times it dimmed by a jaw-dropping 20%. So the first question everyone asked was, what in the universe is big enough to block out that much light from a star?
Just to give you some scale here, if Jupiter, the biggest planet in our entire solar system, were to pass in front of our sun, it would block less than 1% of the sun's light. So whatever is circling Tabby's star is either mind-bogglingly huge or it's something incredibly weird.
Okay, so of course the idea that got everyone really excited was aliens. Maybe an alien megastructure, like a giant Dyson sphere, built around the star to harvest its energy. Now, most scientists think that's pretty unlikely. But the thing is, the other, more normal explanations, like a giant swarm of comets or a lumpy cloud of space dust, they don't quite fit the data perfectly either. The truth about Tabby's star is still very much a mystery. So we've gone from a river that disappears into the ground to a star that flickers in deep space. What's the connection? I mean, why do we find these unsolved puzzles so absolutely captivating? I think the most important thing to remember is this. A mystery isn't a failure of science. It's the opposite. These are the things that push us forward. Every single one of these puzzles is like a new frontier, forcing us to come up with new ideas, build better tools, and just find new ways to look at the universe.
You know, whether it's the Devil's Kettle, the Nazca Lines, or Tabby Star, they all prove the same incredible thing. Our world, our own past, and the cosmos are just packed with secrets waiting to be discovered. They're a great reminder that the search for answers, well, it's a journey that never really stops.
It really feels like for every single answer we find, the universe just throws a new, even more interesting question our way. And you know what? That quest is what it's all about. It's what drives us. And it always leaves you wondering, what's the next great mystery we're going to solve?